So yeah, man. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. Like, you get a little older, and we kind of got brought up in an environment where, at least at my house, it was like, the parents knew best, and kind of, they think the doctors know best. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some great doctors out there, and obviously there's some working in the space that you're in. But as I got older, I found like maybe traditional medicine all the time isn't the right play. And I kind of shared with you a little bit, like, I've had my own struggles, and like, Thor, like, we had to amputate his leg and osteosarcoma. And at the same time, I kind of had some job loss. I used to be the district guy for Unilever Canada. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on, and, some other stuff and some relationships and that have come and gone in my personal life. And, it was kind of a big thing. Like, I had a pretty hard time with the whole COVID kind of, stay home, do what you're told, everybody's terrified. We really didn't know what to think. So, I'm not ashamed to admit it. Like, I had a little bit of a lull in my life where I thought, I don't know how depressed I was, but I definitely wasn't like feeling like myself, and, I was a little anxious, and like, you lose your job, kind of lose part of your identity too. Like, people don't think like we identify that strongly with what we do, but like, I kind of hit my stride pretty early, like, cause I got sucked into the dream. Like, Dad and Gramp were like, hey, you got to go to university and, get an education and get a salary and a pension and, benefits. Cause, they grew up, they didn't have that, Gramp was a carpenter, lobster fisherman. Dad got, that's how Dad got into lobster fishing, and he was an electrician as well, entrepreneur. And, it was kind of funny. It was good enough for them and good enough for like, Gramp's family, our family, but, we had to do what the society said, we had to do. So yeah, I just, kind of take stock of different things, and, I like to try stuff that, might be more beneficial than, what the mainstream says. So it was important to have you on to get a perspective. And I've been commenting and following along for a while, and I think it's great that you're in this space. So why don't we jump right into it, I guess, and we'll do a little introduction. So I wanted to thank Dave Muise here for coming on. He's the VP for NuVista Psychedelic Assisted Therapy. So yeah, why don't we just dive in? I mean, we know each other from back Yarmouth, Y-Town days, and we played hockey together. And but yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you kind of come to be in the seat that you're in today?
Yeah, and thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be on with you today, and it's been great over the last kind of year or so, just going back and forth a little bit and catching up a little bit. I find this space as a whole, it brings people back into your life, or you make introductions that you wouldn't have imagined ever happening before. So it's really cool to reconnect with people and just meet lots of new people, because this is a new space. It's exciting, and like I said, it is all about connecting, and that's what the medicine does, but it also just brings other people who have interest in this space together. So my background in this space is a little interesting. And for me, we have to rewind to about 2007, 2008. I was playing, I'd grown up playing competitive hockey and soccer. Never had much skill in either one. So for hockey, I was a fighter when I played some junior hockey. When I played soccer, wasn't the most skilled guy, but was a worker. And kind of my mindset, if there's a ball in the air and I wasn't necessarily going to get the ball, I was going to get the guy's head. So from those two sports, over the years, I had about 6 or 7 concussions.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. My worst one was 2007, I believe it was, 2007, 2008. My second year of university, got blindsided playing hockey, elbow to the temple. Couldn't read or write for quite a while. Doctor basically came back and said, listen, there's no point in you going to university next year. You're struggling reading and writing, thoughts and sentences aren't coming to you. And even to this day, I'm still a little delayed on thoughts coming to me as I'm talking. So from that, I fell into a bit of a depression. I missed out on my last year of junior hockey eligibility. Couldn't go to school, struggled. So I was watching my friends play hockey. I was watching my friends go to school and have fun. And at 21 years old, I started self-medicating with alcohol.
Okay.
And that was the first time I really noticed that I was doing it. if I look back to high school, probably I was doing it then as well. But I think with all these add-ons of not being able to do all that fun stuff that I was used to doing, turned to alcohol, and it was a downward spiral for a number of years. Got into the financial planning industry, which I was in for about 11 years. And in that game, it's very much get out, meet as many people as you possibly can, a lot of social activities, a lot of drinking. And again, without even noticing, I was self-medicating with alcohol.
Through your job.
Through my job, yeah.
Because you thought it was necessary.
Yeah, and that's how I justified it. You know, that's what I had to do.
Everybody else is doing it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how I meet people. I'm not I've always portrayed I was a confident guy and never was. And I need alcohol to kind of have those conversations. So if we fast forward a few years since 2008 and kind of when all this happened, it was 2019. Went through a career change as well. I was in the financial planning industry for about 10, 11 years. My whole world centered around that. I'm a very competitive guy. And to get to where I got, leading a team in New Brunswick of about 50 financial advisors, you need that drive, you need that urge. And again, that was driven by alcohol. But when I made that career change, it was a loss of identification in who I was. And the timing was perfect, though. And, I'm a big believer things happen for a reason. And I was listening to a podcast. Retired NHL player Riley Cote was talking about his experiences with concussions and how he had turned to psilocybin, better known as magic mushrooms, and how he's microdosing with that to kind of help with his concussions and his post-career and, what he was going to do next and just dealing with everything that he was dealing with. And I was like, I tried mushrooms when I was younger in university and had great experiences with it. Why don't I give this a shot? And I started microdosing with psilocybin, and pretty quickly realized that there's something there. Like it was helping. My thoughts were coming quicker. I wasn't having the memory loss I've had for the last couple of years, and really dove into that. And I guess at the time I still was in the financial planning world. And what I did is I approached this initially as an opportunity to buy company stocks and stuff like that and kind of ride the next wave of psychedelics. Right. And the more research I did in the space, I very quickly realized that there's something here. There's potential to really help people. So I took the next step from just looking at it from a stock buying standpoint to let's try and build something here in Atlantic Canada and let's make this viable for us. And so I started working on a business plan to open my own clinics here in Atlantic Canada, thinking that the larger companies who were out there at the time would never look at us out here on the East Coast as a viable option. I was about 2 months into my business plan when I found out that a company called Field Trip was actually coming here.
I remember that popping up on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, so they put a clinic in Fredericton. And I was like, shit, missed opportunity there. So anyway, I cold called the CEO of Field Trip and said, this is who I am, what I do, why I'm interested. You need to find a role for me. So about 2 weeks later, we got in touch again, and he offered me the position to run the clinic in Fredericton. Amazing. Thank you. Yeah. So I took that opportunity, and I was with Field Trip for about 2 years. And I joke I went to the university of what to do, what not to do. So
great university. Really.
Yeah, 100%. So over the course of about 3 years or so, unfortunately, they hit some financial issues. They went through about $120 million in 3 years. And you could see these. I love Field Trip, and I love my time there. I love everyone I worked with. But you could kind of see these mistakes that were being made in real time and kind of giving warnings like, I think we should do this, or it's more viable to this market in particular. Because they had clinics all through North America. They had 12 clinics, New York, LA, Houston, Atlanta, Toronto.
So pretty sizable company.
Yeah, for sure. But as you know, Atlantic Canada is very unique.
Yeah, geography, spread out.
Everything, yeah. So they were trying to, as any great company would, you want to make sure every clinic's running kind of the same, like a franchise.
Yeah.
But we are not LA.
Right.
So there's a few things that we were noticing in real time. And long story short, eventually, we got notice that they were going under, essentially. So I made a huge pivot, and I approached a physician in New Brunswick, Dr. Hanif Chator, who he's an emergency room doctor in Woodstock. and also the CEO of eVisit, which is an online platform where if individuals don't feel like going to the emerge room or they don't have a family physician, they can jump on an online portal. You meet with a nurse practitioner and you get a diagnosis from there. So smart guy. So we partnered up and we started looking at viable options of what to do and how to keep this clinic alive. And we thought it was important to keep one brick and mortar location, kind of that Fredericton headquarters. We came up with a couple of different ideas of how we were going to do that. And then, the big obstacle in this industry is accessibility. It's not cheap to go through our program.
Right, we were talking about it a little bit.
Yeah, and the reason for that is, we have to pay a lot of people. We have to pay physicians. They're not cheap.
No.
We got to pay admin. We have rent to look after. We have to pay nurses and therapists. So actually, our margins on this are actually almost laughable. If anyone saw our margins, they would ask why we're doing this. But a lot of it goes to doctors. So we need them. So I'm not saying.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's like anybody's, like, you need a lot of people and pieces to make the beast go, like the machine move forward. So I get it.
Yeah. So accessibility kind of came our vocal point. And the game plan that we came up with to make this accessible to as many people was, let's not have a bunch of brick and mortar, because brick and mortar creates a lot of overhead, and overhead creates a lot of expenses. And that's when your business doesn't work. So what we came up with is, let's keep one brick and mortar, or kind of our headquarters in Fredericton, and then let's align and partner with existing mental health therapy companies, and let's utilize their space when they're not using it. So let's go in on evenings and weekends and utilize their space, and then we'll work out an agreement with them. For using their space, we'll pay them a fee for service, essentially.
Yeah.
And what that did, it allowed us to expand very quickly, because we don't have to put up brick and mortar. We don't have to do renovations. We can just find a location in Halifax of an existing therapy company. We can form an agreement with them. We utilize their space. So it allows us to expand quickly. And then also, because we don't have this overhead, it allows us to actually make our program a lot cheaper and more affordable to Atlantic Canadians. And that was a big thing we had in mind, was Field Trip when they came here, and even our competitors today, they're charging kind of I'll call them Ontario rates, and we don't earn Ontario rates as an income here in Atlantic Canada. So by this new strategy, what we did is allowed us to move into different cities very quickly, and also we've been able to lower our rates quite substantially. So with Field Trip, our program was about $6,000 to $8,000, and now our most expensive is about $4,800. Still very expensive, just more accessible, hopefully. And again, we don't have people traveling from all over to one location. It's an hour drive. Even if someone comes from Moncton or Fredericton, they have to take that day off of work. Someone has to drive them. So that creates a lot of chaos too.
A lot of logistics involved to get it done.
Yeah. So essentially, our game plan is to take this to the people. So when building this plan, we realized that it's something we need to find another partner with. And strategically, we looked out there, who could we partner with on this project and really allow us to grow and reach more people. And we reached out to Dr. Mark Johnston, who's a psychiatrist in the Valley here in Nova Scotia. He owns a mental health company called True North Psychology Services. I think they have about 12 clinics in total, 5 or 6 in Nova Scotia, a couple in New Brunswick, and then Ontario and recently Saskatchewan. So by partnering with them, we have a whole network now of psychologists. We have access to their clients. If the therapists feel like there's a proper fit, or one of their clients needs to come see us, easy refer. So it was a great strategic partnership to align with them, and now they're kind of the parent company of our company, and it's been great so far.
Amazing. That's quite a story. I guess I had a couple questions. So you mentioned kind of the price point of the service being, on the higher end. I mean, obviously it's a new type of therapy that's, slowly becoming hopefully mainstream. Have you seen any buy-in or ability from like insurance companies to have this covered for people? I know we breezed over it briefly there, just DMing back and forth, and I don't know if it's something that you can kind of divulge here on on the podcast, but where it is a higher price point, do people have any ability to kind of alleviate some of that with like, their Blue Cross medical or, whatever medical plan that they'd have through their work?
Yeah, that's a question we get quite often, obviously, for, very obvious reasons.
Yeah, of course.
So right now there's no insurance company out there that's covering our full program, ketamine assisted therapy. What we are working with today is anyone who has health benefits through their employer, or their own private benefits that they just purchased on their own. If they have access to mental health therapy in those benefits, they can apply that towards the therapy portion of our program. So let's say you have $1,000 for mental health. You can put $1,000 of that towards our program. The rest you're essentially paying for out of pocket. However, we do have a 12-month payment program.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And also what you are paying for out of pocket, you can apply towards your tax benefits at the end of the year as well.
So it's a write-off.
Yeah. So we realize that, again, it almost is a luxury item that you're purchasing here, but it's potentially saving your life too. So we want to make it accessible as much as we possibly can. So we're hoping that the payment program will help people. But that's essentially what we're working towards right now. We have met with some insurance companies to see if there's an opportunity to run a pilot project with us.
Right.
This is coming. We know that for sure. Like, eventually there will be an insurance company that takes over this and says, we're going to put this in employee benefit programs. It's going to be covered, or a certain percent of it's going to be covered, whatever that looks like. It's coming. It's just a matter of who's the first one.
Yeah. Who's going to jump. Yeah. And that kind of leads into my next question. I know we talked about psilocybin, but NuVista Psychedelic Assisted Therapy, is it more fair to say it's more ketamine based, like it's not psilocybin based?
Yeah, so right now it is ketamine because that's what we're working with legally. We're 100% geared towards and anticipating psilocybin and MDMA to be legalized in the next 24 months, if not sooner.
Yeah, we've been hearing about some trials and stuff for PTSD.
Yeah, absolutely, and tremendous results that we're seeing from these studies. So that's why we went with the name psychedelics. In theory, ketamine isn't a psychedelic, even though it does the exact same thing. We went with that name psychedelic so that it's an easy pivot when we can use psilocybin and MDMA.
Right.
I am very excited to announce, though, that we did get special access program from Health Canada that we're actually going to be working with a veteran next week with psilocybin.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so
awesome.
we're working with a lab who is manufacturing psilocybin now for
like
PTSD.
Yep.
Yeah. They're out of Vancouver. They're called Apex Labs. So
okay.
We're running a trial with them, and we're bringing in a veteran to treat PTSD with psilocybin as early as next week. So pretty exciting.
That is super exciting, and I guess that leads into my next question is like, how much resistance have you seen like against like, the government, with, psilocybin, obviously, mushrooms, it's got that kind of societal kind of negative kind of connotation around it. You mentioned ketamine, it's probably not any better. Like, how have you seen like the acceptance rate or like, the evolution of that? Whether it be the red tape trying to get this approved, to get trials, to get people to show the benefits, or like, have you had many people being like, oh, like mushrooms, ketamine, psilocybin, what are you guys doing over here? Like, how's that whole, like, would you say like vision from like the general populace? How has that been accepted? Like,
honestly, I've been very surprised of how receptive people have been. If we go back to August 2021, that's when I started with Field Trip, and that was my game plan to grow kind of the knowledge, and the clinic was just to go out and educate. And I still think we're very much in that education phase, is let's just go out and educate as many individuals as we possibly can, if that's physicians, therapists, just the general public, government officials. Let's just educate. And I've honestly been very, very surprised on how open people are about this. Moving into putting a clinic in Fredericton, which is a relatively small city, I was worried about the backlash and the pushback we were going to have. We've made some amazing partnerships, and we've hosted some great lunch and learns and open houses, and it's really just that education piece. And there is a lot of openness. It's actually been very, very surprising. I've had very little pushback. Like, I wouldn't even call it pushback. It's just skepticism.
Yeah, obviously, absolutely. I mean, that's fair to have some, anything that pops up that's new. I mean, I guess I asked because, we grew up, or at least I won't speak for you. You can tell me if you kind of heard the same thing because, we're the same age. But, growing up, I smoked pot, that's kind of, it's federally legal. But like when I grew up, that was like, the devil's lettuce. It's like, oh, he's on the dope. Like, don't, he's not going to make it. Like, so like, coming from a small town, kind of rural mentality where like, very much like whatever the media and the news said, like that's what the buy-in was. And like, pot was bad for, the people that didn't smoke pot, and like the people that smoked it knew it wasn't that bad. But I mean, obviously there's different degrees, to everything. And like some people shouldn't smoke pot, and at the same time, some people shouldn't drink. And it's like, you just get stuff like, guy at a work event, I won't mention who, but, me and another colleague, we're going on a boat cruise. It was going to be a couple hours. So it's like, I'm well within the time frame that I was allowed to do it, but I drove there. And, me and another colleague had a puff, went on the boat cruise because I wasn't planning on drinking. Because, not that I had a problem with it, but like partied enough in my 20s and university. And, obviously like some situations probably made some bad choices, shouldn't have. And, I think alcohol was probably one of the main factors to that. And like, anyway, just kind of like one person come right up to us and was like, what are you doing smoking that shit? And I was like, what? Like, are you, and it was, the next sentence was like, are you even going to be able to drink doing that? And it was like, well, it's the whole point.
Yeah.
I'd rather smoke this than that. And like, I'm not afraid to admit, like, I microdose. You know what? Maybe the next one, it's not, having a puff. It's, maybe I do a little microdose before going to an event, and that's my thing. And it's like, for me, it provides the same, level of fun. Like, I don't feel like I need to get like, some of my friends, and like, that's fine. I'm not judging anybody, but if you want to go get blackout drunk on the weekends and, go through the Sunday scaries and all over and back on Monday and go to work and repeat and rinse and repeat, the next weekend, then I mean, do you, but that's not me anymore. And, I think it's super important to educate people on, hey, like, we didn't know what we didn't know 20 years ago or whenever, but like now we have something that could help a lot of people, whereas we know that the mainstream acceptance of alcohol, kind of doesn't really make sense anymore if you really ask. And they're trying so hard to like keep everything else away. So it kind of, it kind of makes you think like, what's the narrative here? What's going on? Why can't we get these seemingly heaps of beneficial positive outcomes for these substances, and like, why are we holding it back? So
yeah, it's quite interesting. And 100%, if we look back in hindsight to, when we were growing up in high school and early days of university, and kind of the education piece on drugs, natural plants, medicine versus alcohol. I mean, I never touched cannabis in high school. Once in a while, but not very, very rare, because I kind of looked down on it as a, what do you like? Same reaction you get on the boat cruise, like,
yeah.
What the hell are you smoking that for? Like, what are you doing with your life? Meanwhile, I was keeping a 15 pack under my bed in high school and drinking it at night.
Right.
But I wouldn't touch a natural plant. And yeah, I think the misinformation and miscommunication and education around these, it's so unfortunate that how much we encourage drinking opposed to natural plants. And I forget who it was where I heard it. I think it was a Netflix documentary, but it might have been Dr. Pollan, who's the author of How to Change Your Mind. But it's a documentary on psychedelics on Netflix now. And there's a great line in there. It's who are we to ban a plant, right? And I'm a big believer that things are here on Earth for a reason.
Yeah.
Cannabis it's a natural plant. Mushrooms, natural fungi that grows. Like, who are we to ban these medicines that are out there, but encourage drinking and alcohol? And we look at what it's done to people's lives and relationships and marriages and family dynamics between parents. It's scary stuff, but we keep encouraging it when there's all these alternative medicines out there that can actually help and cure people. And there's a lot of research going into psychedelics now that are actually very encouraging for alcoholism and having some tremendous results on people staying sober for 12 months. It's quite cool.
Yeah, man, it kind of makes you wonder, like, what's kind of what's the driving force behind that? Is it, they're not making money off it? Is it the amount of money they're making off alcohol, like in terms of tax revenue, or like, what's kind of holding us really getting over that hurdle and making this, more widely accepted? It seems like everything kind of crawls, like if it's not the mainstream objective, like it kind of takes forever. And to your point, like, yeah, for the amount of drinking and driving accidents and, domestics or, whatever that could have been the causation of alcohol, it makes you wonder, like, try and find me like a list of like 10 things that somebody like that smoked a joint did that hurt anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, don't drive high. That's not great. But let's not like fool ourselves. It's not the same thing as drinking and driving.
No.
But yeah, not good either way.
Yeah, I think it's just for decades we've been in love with drinking, right? It's very romantic. You
get the courage to ask the girl or
100%
make the move.
Yeah, and that's what you do on a first date. You go for drinks, or that's what you do with your buddies to watch the football game or hockey game. It's just everything, especially in North America, everything is centered around drinking. And I think obviously we have a long ways to go because that's so embedded in our society today. And I just hope that step by step and more education on natural medicines, I hope we get further and further away from that. And we do focus on just being the best versions of ourselves. And I mean, I just don't think alcohol does that for us. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And it's kind of funny, like, obviously you've mentioned like you're drinking, and I'm assuming that's doesn't happen anymore. And for myself, like, I hosted some Thanksgiving kind of friends get together there for our work softball team, and I've kind of been in the no drinking kind of zone. And then like last night I had like 2 beer, and I was like still, like, I don't know if every time I have like a couple beer now I'm like not like happy with myself. I don't know why, but I'm trying to get away from it. But I always kind of end up, I'm not falling off the wagon per se, but like I'll still buckle and have a couple. But I went out, a couple weeks ago. They're like, oh, let me get you a drink. I was like, actually, I'm not drinking tonight. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm just not going to have any drinks. So like went to a comedy show. I was like, I can still laugh at the show and not get hammered. And they're like, and the kind of the direction was like, well, fine then, just sit there and be sober. It's like, sorry for ruining your night.
Yeah.
So I just kind of it's the only thing that I find you can tell somebody you're not doing at a party and everybody's pissed. Yeah. Well, you think you're better than us, or maybe that's not what they're saying, but I feel like that's what they're thinking.
Yeah, and again, I think that goes back to just the decades of it being part of our culture, and that's all we know. And a lot of us feel like we can't have a good time unless we are having drinks. And for me personally, it took a while to get over that and realize that what they think doesn't matter. And a lot of the times, if you don't announce that you're not drinking, people don't even realize that. And they don't realize that you're not drinking, right? No. If you just have a club soda or a near beer or whatever, people don't notice because they're so focused on themselves and what they're doing. And if it is easier to get away with it if you're not announcing it, but obviously you have to sometimes. But there's been years in the past where I've gone very extended times without drinking and kind of fall off that wagon and get back on. But that was a big thing, was trying to keep it from people that I wasn't drinking, so I didn't get that pressure. And it really is a shame that we do that. It is. And like, our ball team, we got a couple people that don't drink, and like, in the group message, I was like, hey guys, like I have a bunch of booze, like I don't really want it, so you guys come drink it all if you want to drink. If you don't want to drink, that's cool too. We have other herbal remedies here. So I always try and make sure people know that like that's okay. And like, back home, there's definitely been some problems in the family with like drinking, and like it's come up.
And like, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, well, when I'm out with my friends, they're just like, oh, just have one, or just a little one. That won't hurt. It's like, hey, like, fair enough. Maybe it doesn't hurt for some people, but maybe for you, you should consider not.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that they're egging you on. Like, you do what's best for you. And that's what you should do. Not what's best for everybody else or whatever they think is better for them or how they feel or what's going to make them feel good if you're drinking. Like, how they feel doesn't matter. Like, you got to work towards making yourself feel good. And that's very much the path, that I've been on lately. And it's been like, it's not gone yet. And like, but like, it's not, if I drink, it's like one drink, maybe two. Like, I'm driving home within the legal limits. Like, no more partying until stupid o'clock in the morning. There's just nothing, like, I'm married. There's nothing good that comes from that. Like, we shouldn't be in those situations anyway. I mean, unless she's there, but luckily for me, my wife doesn't even drink anyway.
Yeah.
Like, maybe a glass of wine, we watch a movie, and she has one glass, but she's like 4'11", like, that's all she can handle.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll get off this train. I was really interested because I seen that you did your first therapy session yourself. And I've always been interested, and that's why I kind of immediately asked about it. Can you bring us at all through like a ketamine therapy? Like, how does it start to finish? Is there some preparation, the time requirement, any monitoring? I guess I'll let you kind of take the wheel there.
Yeah. So obviously safety is our top priority, and clients are going to be, they're coming to us for a reason. First of all, right? They feel like this is, in a lot of cases, it's a last resort. They've tried everything else. They've tried SRIs. They've gone to therapy for 10 years. They've done everything. And this is something new and something they haven't tried before, and they want to try it. And so what we do and how it works is clients are able to self-refer. We do a mental health screen with one of our, either a mental health nurse or psychiatrist. They make sure that it's a good fit to even begin this program with you.
Because this wouldn't be for everybody, just like some treatments aren't for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. For example, schizophrenics, we don't allow clients who are schizophrenic to go through the program because it can kind of put them into a schizophrenic state and they can potentially stay there.
Right.
So that's one thing we definitely screen for. And then we also have a physical screening as well. There's some things that can disqualify you, high blood pressure, heart rate. Now those things can be managed too, right? Just because your heart rate's high today doesn't mean maybe you haven't filled your prescription in a couple months, or so that we can work with you on that. So we do two pieces of screening there: mental health and physical. And then once you've kind of passed those tests, so to speak, you will be assigned one of our therapists. And from there, you begin some intake and prep sessions. And really, what that looks like is, what are you trying to achieve from this program? What are you struggling with today? How are we going to get you there? And then to me, the most important thing here is that prep work. We have, depending on which program you go with, it could be 2 to 4 prep sessions with a therapist the day you come in. And what that's doing is, the day you come in for the ketamine session, this is what your day is going to look like. And then within 48 hours, we're going to have a therapy session. So it's really just building that trust and walking through the entire program with our clients to make sure that the day that they come in, they're not anxious, they know what to expect. Because when clients come in, as much as we prep them, they are still going to be a little bit anxious that first time. They don't, if they've never had psychedelic experiences, they don't know what they're in for. They don't know if they're going to relive some trauma, so that can make them a little bit anxious. And even though you're being monitored by medical staff, you may be worried about what if something does happen. So there's definitely some anxious levels of the unknown. So the more prep work we do, I feel, is the better. So once we get through those prep sessions, you're in for your first ketamine session. You have 6 ketamine sessions in total. So the day you come in, you meet with our nurse practitioner or a physician, and then they'll do another brief medical screening that day just to make sure heart rate, blood pressure, everything is fine. And then again, depending on which program you're going with, we offer 3 different ways to administer the medicine. So sublingual, nasal spray, or IV. for civilians like you and I, most likely going to be sublingual, which is a lozenge that they swish in their mouth for 15 minutes. So they're sitting in one of our reclining chairs. They have an eye mask, noise canceling headphones on with music that's curated for a ketamine session. So with sublingual, you're swishing for 15 minutes. And once that 15 minutes is up, so what happens is the medicine, it ranges anywhere from 200 milligrams to 600 milligrams of ketamine, but you're actually only absorbing about 20 to 30% through your cheeks.
Okay.
So pretty low dose actually. But then you're kind of lean back in your chair. You're monitored the entire time by a nurse practitioner or physician. You have heart rate monitored on, blood pressure, oxygen, etc. And we also have cameras in the room to watch you as well the entire time. So typically you're journeying. We use the word journeying instead of tripping.
Yeah, I like that.
Sounds a little better.
Right? Tripping is sounds bad. Like,
yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah, exactly. So you're journeying for about 45 minutes to an hour. And then, sorry, I'll back up. Before we fully administer the drug, we do some grounding and meditating, because setting is so important. So we want to make sure you're in the right mental setting. And then our clinics are designed to be nice looking. It doesn't look like a hospital or anything like that. It looks more like a spa, because setting is so important. So we want to make sure that you're in a good space mentally, but also physically, that the space around you is beautiful and there's no triggers and it's just calming and relaxing. So after your 45-minute journey, there's about 15 minutes or so in the room that you can have some snacks, because we ask that the clients don't eat 4 hours prior, because it is a form of an anesthetic. So they have a snack, and then we bring them into a beautiful integration room where we encourage that they just kind of unwind a little bit, take in everything that they just went through. They can color, just listen to music, but we really encourage journaling, because we want to capture everything that they just went through, so that the next day or within 48 hours at a maximum, they're going to be meeting with their therapist to really dive into their experience and really what it means for their life moving forward, and kind of how they can use that as a tool, and what it all means. There's many things they can unravel there.
Right. That's super neat, man. So it's very much like a learning. Like it's not just like a one-shot deal. Here you go. We hook you in. You do your thing and off you go. It's very much like, and I really love that you mentioned a couple of things, because meditation for me, I guess rewind, like, through my little lull of like job lost our dog, loss of identity, really had a hard time with like, my wife had to pay the bills here, like that's like a, call me a toxic male, but like at my house, I want to contribute. I want to be the bread. I'm not saying that's how it has to be. I'm just saying that's how I felt, for anybody that gets their feathers ruffled there. But like, my wife was awesome about it. Like, she was very supportive into me pivoting into real estate, and, was always like, she's always been my number one fan. But it didn't feel good. Like for me, like I'm sure you can attest, like we're competitive folks, and, I was the hardest on myself. I was like, I need to get back to, my Unilever, level of income or whatever you want to call it. Like I need to get that quality of life back. And every day that I, being an entrepreneur, especially when you start in finance, like sometimes you're filling that pipe, man. You don't know if it's going to drip out the other end at all. And it was like every day that I didn't see something was like exponentially like weighing me down. And like, it was like, I actually turned to pot more than drinking, funny enough. And I think I even went too far that way. So, I was like, okay, well, I was getting irritable at home, like, it just wasn't fair. Like I didn't feel like I was present enough, like for Caitlin, and so I was like, hey, I got to make some changes here. Like I was aware that I needed to make some shifts. So first off, go to the doctor. Hey, anxious, irritable, this is what I feel like's going on. She's like, okay, well, we'll put you on, whatever the frig it was, and if that doesn't work or you're having issues, we can put you on this and that'll fix that, but then that might do this. And I was like, holy hell, I want like one problem fixed here, and you're telling me I need to take up to maybe 1 to could be 3 different things. I was like, I don't really want to like be plugging and playing with chemicals in my body, but doctors know best, right? So I kind of just was like, okay, well, I'll give it a shot because I don't know, could work just best of kind. And she was like, oh yeah, well, for some people it works great and that's all they need. And, you know, bada bing, bada boom kind of thing. So, you know, got it. I found it made me feel worse. And, you know, there's some definitely unwanted side effects, like, sexual dysfunction, like whatever. That doesn't feel great when you're already kind of feeling a little inadequate at, you know, contributing at the home. So pretty early on, I was like, this is like, I give it a good go and, you know, adjusted the doses and all that different stuff. And it just wasn't for me. And I was like, okay, well, we got to try something else. And I was like, well, can't really smoke more pot because I feel like that's not good either. And I had a few friends, you know, that did mushrooms or were always like, you know, advocates of that. And then, you know, kind of around that, like probably 2 or 3 years ago when you got into it, I seen that. I started digging into it and I started microdosing and I got off the other, you know, the pharmaceuticals or whatever, the anti-anxiety meds. And I found one, I was following like their 5 days on, 2 days off. I don't know if you would have heard about them, but it's, the name escapes me now. I should know. Anyway, it'll come to me later. But anyway, it's a company out of Vancouver. Probably one of the first kind of pretty legitimate companies to, at least they looked legit. I guess nobody selling microdosing capsules are technically totally in the right side because it's not through like a physician or anything, but microcybin. Sorry, there we go.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I followed their like 5 days on, 2 days off protocol, and you know, I found it was great. Like I'm not doing it all the time. Like, you know, for a bit I was kind of following like the full weeks and the 2 days off, but you know, automatically like, you know, mood was better. You know, things that I like, you know, needing to move the needle forward and like getting to where I thought I needed to be, you know, professionally was like, yeah, it was still there, but I wasn't like beating myself up inside over it as much. And then I didn't find like, you know, now maybe if I didn't have like a ton of stuff to do, maybe I'd have a puff in the middle of the afternoon in the weekday or whatever. But then all of a sudden I found didn't really need that. And it was just more like a before bed kind of type thing. Or, you know, I do a lot of like jiu-jitsu and running and, you know, pretty athletic guy or active guy. So sometimes it's more for like pain management or whatever. So, but even with that, I found like, hey, there's still some other work to be done here. So like, you know, can't just rely on substance. You know, got into meditating. So big guy on the Headspace app. Like I found that's really good. They have a lot of great content. Been into like sleep music too, like just like white noise or whatever they call that. I guess it's brown noise actually, I think it's called.
Okay.
Like just like, you know, rainforest waterfall
right.
or like, you know, rain on a cabin roof or stuff like that. So I've been trying, I mean, I'm not as diligent, like I'll get on a week, you know, straight and then I'll miss a day or two and you know how it goes, but I always get back to it. And I found that's been a super enlightening process to be able to like, hey, like it's okay to be, you know, upset or overwhelmed, but doesn't mean that you have to act on it all the time. Or, you know, sometimes it would externalize and maybe come out at home and it's like, well, that's not fair that you're the one that's upset over something they don't know. And then journaling, and my mentor Naz, that I meet with every Wednesday, and we share whether it's real estate related, personal, like it's like, you know, I'm very grateful for him because he's been a huge help in the process, especially in the world of real estate where you feel like you're all on your own all the time. You know, we're sharing some stuff and, you know, kind of shared a few things about each other. This was earlier on in our relationship. And he's like, man, he's like, have you journaled? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I always tried to, but I never knew what to write.
Yeah.
And like, so I was like, maybe I'll write all the stuff that I want. And then anyway, I got this like 5-minute guided journal. It's just really like, I wake up, write down what it's like, write 3 things that you're grateful for, your daily affirmations, you know, what would make today great. And then, you know, in the evening, it's very much like, hey, you know, what did you do today? And, you know, what are you grateful for? And you kind of start the day with good and you end it with good. So, when you're kind of starting like that, I find it helps, maybe you had a friendship that kind of went to hell in a handcase, for lack of better words, or you had a real estate deal, or, a bad client kind of situation. Yeah, those things matter, but it doesn't have to be the epitome and the focus of your day. Like, things will be good and bad, but like when you just focus on the good, I find it's easier to just keep moving forward. So it's great that the service, not only from a treatment perspective, does wonders and benefits for people, but you guys are also using it as like a learning. It's like, this is a lifestyle more so like of wellness and taking care of your mind and your body. And I think that's what, like, like I had a friend that like was like, oh, how are you doing, with meditation there? Just like curious. Like, I've kind of been wondering about it, but like if it wouldn't work for me in like a week or two, like I don't think it's going to be doing it. And I'm like, hey man, I think like a lot of people have been doing it for their lives or several years. I'll tell you, at least from people I've talked to, it's like, I think all of them are going to say they're not that good at it, but they keep doing it. And it's like a lifelong process. You just kind of keep building and building. Whereas like, I think everybody thinks everything like, it's got to get that reward right away or that instant gratification. Yeah. Nobody's really working on that delayed piece. Like, but as entrepreneurs, like sometimes the work today doesn't pay out today. It's down the road.
Yeah.
So I think it's awesome that your guys' outfitting really works on, the treatment and the whole process and how to move forward, with your life after that. So
yeah, 100%. And you touched on it. We want to create a lifestyle for these individuals, where they're implementing different tools. And you said it right. What we're giving these individuals is just more tools, with the meditation and just the groundwork, like being where your feet are. We underestimate how important that is, especially as, we evolve with family lives, or spouses, kids. Like, my biggest thing, like, and I have performance anxiety. Like, I always want to be the best at whatever I do.
Same.
And if I'm not, then it's like, fuck, like what didn't get done today? How could I have been better today that I wasn't? But going down this journey, like, I don't care as much anymore. Like, I have a plan. I'm sticking to that plan. If things go off the rail, I don't care. Right. I want to be, and I focus on what's important to me now, being where my feet are. And, I attribute that mindset to everything that we just talked about. Like, journaling, I think is so important, and that's a hard skill to learn, but it's important to 100% start your day with gratitude. And, we can also capture in there, okay, if I closed a real estate deal today, how did I do that? Like, let's capture that so it becomes repeatable. Right. Yeah. And or I'm just in a great mood today. What did I do today that made me in such a great mood? Like, let's make that repeatable. Meditation is such a great tool. And then to me, in regards to our program, why I feel like our clients have had such success with our program is it's just not ketamine, which is, just giving you a medicine, giving you a drug. And it's not just therapy. It's a combination of the two. There's a lot of competitors out there in Halifax that they're only focused on the medicine.
That's the product, the money.
Yeah.
Let's get you the product, get you the money,
100%.
Get the next one in.
Yeah, there's zero therapy. There's great results, but they could be better. And so we've determined that clients who come in for ketamine followed by therapy within 48 hours actually have an 86% better result than individuals who just have ketamine therapy with no therapy, or ketamine with no therapy. So, ketamine is great by itself. It's a tool. Therapy by itself is great. It's just a tool. And what we're finding is when you combine the two, that's when you see the amazing results. And it's because a lot of these individuals, we treat a lot of veterans and first responders who have gone through a lot of stuff. They've seen a lot of things. You can only imagine if they just come in for a ketamine session, they have whatever their experience may have been in that journey, but then they're just kind of left with those thoughts and they don't know what to do with them. Maybe they're journaling on their own, but if you don't have a therapist to go talk to and dive into what that means, and what
unpack it?
100%. Like, for example, if I look at my own personal experience and kind of how my life really changed, if I didn't have a therapist to talk like I'll tell you what happened. So I was having a macrodose of psilocybin.
Yeah.
And it was good experience. Nothing really altering happened until the very end. I was going to bed and I look up and Jesus is standing over me.
Shit.
And he tucks me in the bed and he says, David, you need to stop drinking and you need to follow me. If I didn't have a therapist to talk to within 48 hours, that's a lot to unpack.
That's some heavy shit.
It's heavy.
Are you a religious guy?
I am now.
Yeah.
So my wife and I...
That changed you?
100%. Like, to me, like, I'm such a believer in this medicine, and whatever this medicine brings you... Follow it. And we always say at the clinic, this medicine doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need. Huh. And that's what came to me. And since then, like, my wife and I we've dived into Christianity and faithful followers of Jesus, and it's completely changed our life. Like, we go back to the experience of people saying, "Oh, you're not drinking today." I don't care, because I made a promise to one person who is the only person that matters in my life at this point. I shouldn't say that, my wife and family. But the biggest relationship in my life, I made a promise to him not to drink. But again, back to my point, if I didn't have a therapist to talk to that about, I don't know, what would I do with all those thoughts or that imagery?
Yeah, it could drive people the other way.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. I like that you mentioned that, because I'll be honest, I grew up Catholic. Mom was always like, hey, we're going to Sunday, mass, you should go to church. And I was so resistant when I was a kid, because I just, you didn't want to go to church. It was boring, and you got to sit and listen to people talk. And, but I always went for her because I knew it was important to her and my grandmother. And, like, both my grandparents on the other, dad's side were, like, Protestant. So, you know what it is, like, father's last name, mother's religion. So we were Catholic, and we did the whole confirmation, communion, all that stuff. And, I just didn't want to go because I was just a smart-ass kid. But then when I really denounced kind of religion and God and all that, it was like when my grandfather died, he had cancer. And, like, we watched him, like, go from, well, he was like, that's him right in that picture there. So that was in his garage, like, just in Argyle. And, like, he was, like, a big influential part of my life. And, he's always done everything by the book. Like, he was a great community guy. Like, if you needed help, he'd help you. For us as grandkids, like, Dad was always fishing, doing electrical work. And don't get me wrong, I'm not dinging him for that. He had to do what he had to do. But early on retired. He had a stroke. We didn't know when we were young, but he retired early from fishing because of that. And he was always around, had all this patience. And he was just like, he didn't drink, he didn't smoke, like, very much like a good guy, like very, like someone to look up to admire. And, we watched him go from that to, like, in a hospital bed in the dining room, like, he had skin cancer that they never got, and it got in his brain, and it went from there. So from that, I was like, how could God, like, if there is one, take my he was only like 77 or something. He wasn't even old, if today's standards, or even then. So there was that. I was kind of, and who knows, maybe that's why I kind of went the other way, I guess. And then dog, the pandemic, you look at all the other travesties in the world, and it's like I have a hard time believing that he would let it happen. It's like, well, why'd you take Grant from me before I wasn't done? Like, I still needed him. Same thing with, like, my dog. So it was like, and then, and then right after that, well, Gramp has been a few years that he's passed away, but I think that was kind of the start of, like, some of the troubles. And then the dog and the pandemic, and then going through that whole kind of process with my wife, it was just kind of, fuck that guy. Like, no offense, but, like, I was like, till you show me why I should believe. Like, I haven't seen anything that leads me there. But anyway, as I kind of say that, he's a church guy or religious fella, a young guy, like, added me on Facebook. I thought it was like a hack. And it was like, hey, man, just moved to Sackville. I forget what religion. And anyway, my same thing was like, hey man, like, yeah, I'd love to meet with you. He wanted to meet up. And I don't know exactly what he wanted, if he wanted to buy a house or not, but I was like, yeah, like, I'm happy to meet, but I'll just tell you, like, I don't really believe, like, and he's like, oh, could I ask why? And I kind of told him what I told you. And he's like, well, I don't know why he does the things that he does, but, we could chat about that and so on. But I've noticed a lot, like, I listen to Rogan, I listen to Cam Haines, I listen to a bunch of different podcasts, and especially in the States, there's a lot of people, whether they've always believed or followed, or they started to because of like an experience like that. I find it's become more mainstream. And I don't know if it's because of these new studies and treatments that people are finding they're okay with. But yeah, it seems to be a common theme. And it kind of makes you wonder, like, is there something there? So like out of curiosity, I'm like, well, maybe I'll go pick up like the, Book of Proverbs or like something. I'll just do some like reading up on it and see if I can, take anything from it. I don't know what I believe, but I know I'd like to believe there's something, but I'm just stuck between like, I'm just like kind of mad at the whole thing. And like, I guess I'm trying to figure out, well, if that God does exist, then what was the meaning of all this hardship? And I mean, I guess I got through it, but
You got through it.
yeah,
That was the meaning.
yeah, maybe so. Maybe that's it. Maybe it was to show something like that. And then, I mean, you don't know until you talk it out kind of a little bit too. But, and honestly, I don't know, like probably most of my friends have never heard, like if they watch this, I don't know who watches this, hopefully some people, but, yeah, I've kind of always had this battle and I've been very resistant. Like, my wife's parents are religious, and, when we first started hanging out, they used to say grace when we go for dinner. And took it so, like, it was offensive to me that you would like impose your, like, I don't know. I was just so anti everything. Or it'd be like, oh, an old friend back in the day would be like, oh, come to church on Sunday. I'd be like, no, thanks. But, if you asked me today, I might go to see what it feels like. And I guess you don't have to technically go to church to be religious or believe or whatever. But, yeah, it's nice to hear, I guess, somebody that you actually, known from the past, kind of been through something and kind of went that direction. So it kind of makes you wonder if you should dive in a little bit. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, thank you for sharing. There's a lot there, and that's personal stuff. And
yeah, well, I've always been kind of outspoken and pretty open book, and sometimes you want to keep some of the stuff away because you think people think you got, you off your rocker, or you're not 100% with it or whatever. But like today, man, if somebody wants to ask me about something and they really care to know, like I'll share. Like I don't think there's any benefit to keeping anything inside. And if you feel like you can share that in whatever forum it is, maybe this will help somebody else. Who knows? I don't know. So that's why I'm just letting her go. Yeah,
and I guess, and to that point, I mean, that was my experience with psychedelics and how it helped me. I also don't want to discourage someone who's extreme atheist.
Right.
They don't want to give this a shot because they're afraid to meet God and have a meaningful relationship with Him. I think that's just what I needed. And going back to what I said, that the medicine doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need. So if we're scared of that, don't be discouraged. Still try this medicine if you feel like it can help you. Just be open, right? Just let the medicine do what it's going to do and just be open to whatever you receive. I think that's the best advice I can give anyone who's thinking about this program is just be open and just let it take you wherever it's going to take you.
Yeah, man. It reminds me of this quote. He's actually coming, funny enough, he's coming to do a seminar. He's done a few for our jiu-jitsu club, Lucas Lepre, numerous time world champion. And I remember, I don't know if it's still in his profile, but I remember when I first knew who he was through jiu-jitsu, I looked him up and he had a quote in his Instagram. And it was like, everything you desire lies on the other side of your fears.
Yep. 100%.
Right? And do you and I know, like, when I first experimented with mushrooms, and my mom's going to be pissed if she watches this, but whatever. But, And it's like you say, like macro dose or micro dose, or if they're going for a ketamine therapy session and they don't know, a lot of people are I think I was scared. It's like, well, what if I feel something I don't want to feel?
Good.
Or I know. But do you find that's what holds a lot of people back? They're scared to actually get into what they need to get into to move forward.
For sure. And I think that's why coming for this treatment in a setting like ours is very important.
Yeah.
I'm not pushing us onto people. It's because we do that prep work. It's because you're going to be in a guided session, you're going to be monitored, and your therapist is there to go over those things. So for example, this guy doesn't mind me sharing because he's very vocal on the work that he's done in our clinic. A veteran who was in Afghanistan and, watched his best friend go through an explosion and pass away.
That's terrible.
And in one of his sessions at our clinic, he was floating above this scene, and his friend came to him and said, "Why are you so stuck on the negative of what happened to me? You're forgetting 20 minutes before the explosion, you and I were playing football and we're having a great time. And you keep forgetting that I died doing what I love." So the guy at the end of it, he said, after his session, he said, it was a completely different perspective. It doesn't change that this trauma happened to him. It's just a completely different perspective. And 100%, it's a mindset switch that, okay, this happened. How do I integrate it in my life moving forward? And then that's when that therapy piece comes into play. Okay, so you had this experience. A, you had this experience in Afghanistan. B, you've now kind of relived it from a different perspective. Let's work on that now. That's, and that's when the two pieces of this medicine, the ketamine medicine and the therapy combine, and that's when you get the true results. Because now he's not denying this happened to him, but it's not a 40-pound rock that he's dragging behind him anymore either, right? Because he's now integrated it into his life, and he's got the tools to move forward.
Yeah, man, maybe you nailed it. Maybe I've been dragging around a big rock. It's pretty heavy,
We all do.
Like, why did the Gramp go when he did? And it's like, it's like, well, there's a ton of other awesome memories, like, that we would have went through with him, like built all this cool stuff with, for Dad, because Dad was too busy, learned about a ton of like neat skills that, come in handy today, like, and I don't even think about it. It's like, oh, well, Gramp would have taught me that, or like tying knots, or like how to make sure things are level and plumb. It's like, I'm no carpenter, but I can know the basics. So it's like, yeah, that's a great lens. Like, I guess I never even thought of it even before today. It's like, I'm focusing on just the worst part.
Yep.
And I think we're just wired that way too. It's like, all the stuff you see in the world, it's like negative. Everybody's like on that. It's like, well, we've done a lot of good out here too. So maybe if we take a minute, focus on that and not, the bad conversation or the shitty reaction or the bad day we had at work, and just focus on that. And it's just like, just kind of
100%. And that's what these medicines do. They actually rewire your brain. I think it's about 90% of our thoughts day over day are the exact same. And if and there's thousands of thoughts, I forget the number, it's like 3 or 6, I know that's a wide gap, but it's a lot of thoughts we have in the course of a day. I think it's 60,000 actually. If 90% of that's the same as it was yesterday, and if those thoughts are negative, well, you're going to have a negative life. So that's where this medicine goes in and rewires it. And the best analogy is, if you think of a ski hill and you make that first run down, or sledding even, you make that first run down, and then you stay on that same track, right? Because it's easier. You just stay on that same track.
Right, you already dug in there.
Right. But what this medicine does is, like, a new snowfall comes in, and you get fresh tracks.
Fluffy white new
Fluffy
snow.
White, beautiful stuff.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Yeah, no, and I mean, you know what? I probably, if I told you I would have had a podcast talk about my feelings and different experiences just a short 6-7 months ago, probably would have said you're crazy.
Yeah.
And, very much like I do all the stuff that I said, I 100% do it. I also go to therapy. I think anybody that thinks they shouldn't go to therapy, should go talk to someone else. Like,
yeah,
like everybody needs it, I think.
Well,
or it's a benefit.
100%. And the feedback that we're getting is from our clients is one ketamine session followed up by therapy is equal to 5 years of normal therapy. 5
awesome.
years, right? Because what it does and how this medicine really works is we all put up all these barriers and walls. And what the medicine does is it breaks those down so that we're more open, we're more willing to share, we're more coachable. So that when we go to these therapy sessions after a ketamine session, we're going to share, we're going to open up. I wrote a letter to my therapist about every single thing I've done wrong in my life. That's not easy.
Quite a letter.
Or in a letter.
I'm just thinking in my
yeah, and everything that
lens.
was done to me. When you put that on paper, it's hard to do. It's meaningful. But when you're able to bring that and show that to someone else and really dive into it and work on it, it's powerful stuff. But I wouldn't have got there without this medicine. And I'm not saying I'm fixed. I'm far from fixed. I have so many things I need to work on still. But it gets you there that much quicker, because I never would have told my therapist some of the things that I told her without this medicine.
Yeah, man, I'll be the first one to admit, like, it's taken me like a couple of years, because my therapist always like, so what do you want to work on? Like, he knows there's stuff I'm not saying.
Yep.
And then finally I was like, blah, blah, and I just like let it out. And he's like, all right, that's new.
Yep.
What made you say that? And it's like, then you get into it. And it's like, but, journaling, meditation, some microdosing, become a bit more like empathetic and, realizing it's okay and it's a safe space. Like, I guess, start therapy and you still think like he's going to go tell all his buddies or whatever that you're just crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's like, it took a while for me to warm up, and I was like, oh, well, I don't want to say this because, maybe he will judge me. Everybody's terrified of getting judged, like of their wrongs or what they think is wrongdoings or stuff that they've done that isn't good or they're not proud of. But, again, if you just focus on the bad parts of what we did and don't focus on how we can move forward and learn from those mistakes and be better, like, we're not defined by our past. And if people want to hold you accountable for something you did to them in high school, then that's on them. I'm not the same guy from high school hockey or university or, even a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, we'll call it. But I made that choice.
Yep.
And everybody else has to make that for them. Nobody else can do it for them. And I think that's the biggest piece.
Absolutely.
So I've unfortunately had to leave some people behind in that process too, because, to your point, it's like the only time you want to hang out with people is when you're fucked up, excuse my language, or drinking or whatever. Like, are those the right people? Maybe they are, but not in the journey I'm going. So,
yep. And
it hurts to make some changes like that.
Absolutely.
But it's like you say, you're in charge of your own life. And I very much although, you got the religion factor, I made a decision like, hey, my wife hasn't been getting the attention she needs because I've been struggling with my own shit. So I got to do the work to get this where it should be. And, not that she's been mistreated per se, but like I've made her the center.
Yeah. And
like we're thinking about having kids, or we're kind of in the process of like trying. I make the joke, you'll get it, like we pulled the goalie.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a very much a process of like, how can I just be better for her, be better for a future child if we're blessed with that, and just be a better person. And, I'm looking around at what I'm doing and I think I'm doing the right stuff, although I'm not saying I'm better than anybody, but yeah, I'm just going to focus on that, and the people that are around that I feel align, will be, and the people that aren't, I guess, won't. So it's just, but it's a matter of accepting that not everybody can come with you, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. And my therapist had a great analogy of you're going on a road trip, and it's a long road trip. Who are you taking with you? Right? Like, who's in the car with you? And actually, when you start writing a list of who you taking in that car,
how big is it really?
Right. 'Cause it's a great analogy, because this really is a long road trip. It's a road trip of life.
It's to the end.
Right. And who do we want in that car with us?
Right.
I don't always want my wife. She's going to drive me nuts as a,
Right.
as a backseat driver, but I got to take her.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, shoot, man. Well, I'll tell you what. I know you're a busy guy. I think it's a great place to end it off. I really appreciate you coming on. I've really been looking forward to having this conversation, and I hope to really experience that. We'll probably have to chat about that some more, see if I can get in, and I'd love to give her a try to see if I can kind of put that as an add-on to my little journey. But yeah, hopefully we'll see some options here for people in Halifax here soon. And I'd love to have you back on anytime there's some new developments too. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're definitely looking at Halifax, Nova Scotia, and in general. Obviously, there's a need everywhere. We can look at every city in the world. There's a huge need. But yeah, there's definitely a big need in Nova Scotia right now, and it's definitely a place we're looking at. And happy to come on at any time and talk more, and we'll see if we can get you in for the program as well.
Yeah, I'd love to. I was talking to my wife about it too, because she's also interested, because she's with forensics with HRP, so
Okay.
she sees a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah.
And also, like, the cops won't, like, if you do microdosing on your own, they're not, if you know about it, I don't think they'd like it. So.
Yeah, and to that point, because I know we talked a lot about microdosing or macrodosing with psilocybin, and we're not naive to think that people aren't doing it. We know people are doing it. My only piece of advice for those individuals, just be careful. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why our type of clinics exist, not just ours. It's just, that screening. Some individuals, if they, if bipolar runs in their family, maybe they're not aware, and, that could set them off into one of those quote unquote bad trips.
Yeah.
And being in that right set and setting is so important. So again, we're not naive to think everyone's going to stop microdosing with psilocybin and run to our clinic. Just be safe is all, because it's powerful medicine, and if we're not careful with it, it can lead us into some bad places. And that's what set us back 50 years back in the 60s, right? Is abuse.
Yeah.
So, and that's our biggest fear, is this becomes legal over the next 12 months, 24 months, is just abuse and who's using it and how they're using it. So we got to be careful with this medicine, or we're going to be back to where we were. It's just
tread lightly, people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for people that want to look up some more information on this, where would you tell them? Would your LinkedIn page be good, or if would the company page, like if people wanted to dive into this a little bit more?
Yeah, so I think we got a few options out there. So we're on I'm pretty active on my own personal LinkedIn. I kind of post everything on there, but we have Facebook and Instagram. If you just search NuVista Psychedelics, you'll find us on there.
Cool.
Our website, if you just want to Google NuVista Psychedelic Assisted Therapy, will come up. It'll be under the umbrella of True North, kind of our parent company. It's on their website as well. We share a website, but all the information's on there. And we've got a fabulous admin. She knows all the answers to scheduling and the program and stuff like that. So if anyone wants to just call in, email, she's a tremendous resource.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. So for the people that want to look that up, have a peek. We'll put it all in our video when we release that. And again, thanks so much for coming. It's been an enlightening conversation, and a few things you mentioned that I got to think about now. So thanks again. Hope you have a safe trip back home. And I'd love to have you back on anytime.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back, and I appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Thanks.